What do avoidants secretly want during no contact? There are certain things avoidants actually wait for during a no contact phase after a breakup, and those things might not be what you'd expect from them. Here's the thing, they'll never tell you about these things. But as an avoidant myself, someone who's lived through many years of this, I'll share 7 things today that most avoidants will never admit, but actually wait and hope for during no contact. Now, the first thing avoidants secretly hope for during no contact is that you, the partner, reinitiate contact. They wish for nothing more than for you to come back to them and text them, maybe even apologize. And if that's triggering you right now because you might think, I'd never get back to them, they hurt me, they left me. I'm not saying you should, that's important. We'll talk about what you can actually do near the end of this. Don't reinitiate contact here. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying they secretly hope for it. They long for the closeness and connection they had with you, maybe the intimacy, maybe the attention they got from you. This is what they miss during no contact. I have another model I always use to explain why avoidants also secretly hope for connection, even though they couldn't handle the closeness. It's the model of the missing puzzle piece. The missing puzzle piece is always a form of external validation they seek. And it's not only them who seek that external validation, it's usually also the anxious person they often end up in a relationship with. The avoidant carries around an inner void, a feeling of emptiness, a feeling that they don't really matter, a sense of shame that they aren't good as they are, inherently flawed in some way, and so they seek for you to come back to offer them this missing puzzle piece, to give them the feeling that they matter, that they exist, that they're worthy and okay as they are. This is what they wish for. And the problem is they never communicate that because they learned that showing up vulnerable and expressing those vulnerable emotional needs would always be met with hostility, rejection, and criticism, so you'll never hear this desire from them directly. But the truth is it lives in their core emotional wound. So if you were to reinitiate contact, that would mean they get confirmation that they're still valid, still okay. It regulates them. Contact, connection, regulates them, maybe as much as it regulates the anxious person. I'll get to that later. Now, number 2. What they secretly wait for is that you're still emotionally available. Again, avoidant is also a synonym for someone who's emotionally unavailable, not because they lack emotions, they often appear numb or cold, but because they can't express emotions, since they have really limited access to their own emotions and needs too. So whenever you connect with them, whenever you reach out, closely tied to the first point, it feels like contact from a safe distance. Say you're in a no-contact phase, you reconnect with them. Maybe you like their picture on Instagram, you send them a message, whatever form of attention it is, it always gives them a feeling of, oh, I'm still relevant and they're still available for me. They're still willing to give me just a glimpse of the feeling that I do matter, that I'm still okay. Because if they didn't connect with me, they wouldn't love me. But they do love me, so there's still hope. And what they do on their end to test that out is spread breadcrumbs. You'd maybe get a like from them on social media, or they'd refollow you. We live in the digital age, so most of this happens online. But say you're with a coworker and you're in no contact. Maybe you suddenly find a sticky note on your desk or something. That's how it would happen in the non-digital world. But they test it with breadcrumbs. They'll maybe leave you a like, send you a message, and try to check, are you still available for me as a source of regulation? Then they also wish, number 3, that you fight for them, because they feel a bond built out of a shared core wound. This is what I mentioned in number 1. Both of you carry a core wound of, I'm not good enough. So both of you seek a form of validation from each other. This is why no contact is so painful too, but it's just the flip side of the same coin. Both of you lose yourselves in relationships. The avoidant loses themselves in engulfment, being flooded and overwhelmed with anxiety, for example, losing themselves because they become an inauthentic, repressed version of themselves. And the anxious person loses themselves in relationships because they fall back into this hot and cold pattern that's so familiar from childhood. They maybe once learned they had to earn love, and they constantly chase a form of love through this endless up and down roller coaster, this constant on-off with the avoidant, who comes on full of love and then pulls back out of anxiety. Love anxiety. It's the same pattern the anxious person maybe learned in childhood with their caregivers. They were loved one day, the parents were distant the next, so they had to work hard for love. They had a full toolkit of strategies to win back attention, because maybe the parents were busy or constantly working and didn't have time, so the anxious child constantly felt abandoned. Now, this is exactly the same core wound. Both think they don't matter and that they're inherently flawed. The avoidant wishes you'd fight for them because they want that same feeling too, to be seen, to be heard, to be wanted, which comes out of this core wound, but definitely not to be needed. So they want you to fight for them, to jump back into that relationship, to want to get them back. They like the feeling of being seen, of being wanted. What they don't like is you placing expectations on them, needing them. So when you come across as needy, because you're acting out of your own core wound, it overwhelms them. So there's a desperate wish to be wanted, but not to be needed. Number 4 is that you explain to them what went wrong in the relationship. As we already learned, the avoidant has really limited access, if any, to their needs. so they'd never show up and admit they feel maybe desperately lonely, or that they truly do love you. They'd never show you their anxieties, that they feel ashamed, but they like it when you do that job for them. You shouldn't do that, of course. This isn't a manual for how to get an avoidant back. This is about understanding what they can't really say or feel during no contact, okay? But the thing is, they wish you'd get back to them and say, our relationship didn't work out because yes, we had so many fights, we had a lot of disagreements, we screamed a lot at each other, we had so many differences, and I'm really sorry I hurt you. They just wish that would happen. Again, it shouldn't, because a huge part of why the relationship didn't work is their own sabotaging behavior. They have to take responsibility for that, but they still wish you'd take that responsibility off their hands and do their job of being honest for them. They also wish, number 5, that you work on yourself and become more independent. I'm smiling a bit here because that one's a bit ironic. It's so typical for an anxious avoidant relationship, and I see myself in it too, because what they secretly wish is that you come back to them as a less clingy, less needy version of yourself. But here's the thing, just because they think that, just because they want that, doesn't mean you actually were too needy or clingy. Because part of every relationship is that we have to connect and rely on each other. So a secure bond has a form of reliance just by nature, which the avoidant interprets as clingy and needy. No, it's just normal, because that's how a bond works. You rely on each other, and sometimes, yes, you are needy. Sometimes you need more love. Sometimes you need to feel seen. Sometimes you just want that. And some days people are a bit more needy. They're in need, and both people support each other with their needs. But this is what the avoidant can't really see, and they read it as the other person not being independent enough. But the truth is we're talking about interdependence here. So instead of the other person becoming less needy and less clingy, the avoidant would have to work on becoming more dependent, because the avoidant sits fully on the independent side, the anxious person sits more on the dependent side, and the secure person sits in the middle. That's interdependence. They're interdependent. And number 6, they don't just secretly want you to work on yourself and become more independent. No. They also want you to work on yourself and become less emotional. In the avoidant's eyes, they always believe their partner is creating a relationship full of drama, very emotional, and they just want a relaxed relationship. They always believe they're the ones bringing that calm. Oh, I want a calm relationship. Why is there always so much drama? The truth is, this drama and these fights are usually rooted in frustration and disappointment with the partner because the avoidant is never honestly communicating what they feel and need. And because they're constantly repressing their own emotional inner life, the other person gets frustrated because they feel their emotions, their relational needs, are never seen and never listened to in the relationship. And for me personally, it's still difficult even to this day. This is why I relate to this so much. I personally learned that sometimes it's just about listening first, just seeing that there is a relational need and seeing this need in my partner without freaking out myself and constantly denying it or trying to read it as criticism or a threat to the relationship. No, when someone expresses an emotion and the need behind that emotion that they want and need something, for example, they want to be seen more in the relationship, it doesn't matter whether that's compensation from the past or not. Whether they weren't seen as a child, they have this need right now, in this situation. It isn't about reading that as an attempt to ruin the relationship. No, it's just an emotion. It's just a need being expressed. And this is what the avoidant absolutely doesn't understand. They constantly believe the other person is way too emotional, and in reality, they just don't have access to their own emotions, and definitely not the ability to express them properly. Now, the last one, number 7, what they also secretly hope for is that you become the person they can finally be themselves with. I think that's the deepest desire every avoidant out there has. They just want you to come back someday during no contact, get back to them and say, sorry, darling, I did things wrong, and I was too emotional. I'm sorry I criticized you. I'm sorry we had those fights. I'm very sorry I was disappointed and frustrated because of your behavior, and I just want to be with you as a person, and I just want to accept you as you are, because you are absolutely okay. And part of that is, of course, beautiful, to accept someone as they are. But there's a huge misunderstanding in this position, in the avoidance mind, which is that the other person also has relational needs and emotions. And the more the avoidant represses their own emotions and needs, the more space in the relationship the other person's emotions and needs will end up taking, because the frustration and disappointment will grow and grow and grow until they're constantly fighting. And it makes sense, because one person is so unsatisfied with the relationship because they never feel seen, never feel heard. How could that relationship be any different? And this is what the avoidant is denying. They don't understand that in order to be accepted as they are, they first need to accept themselves and their own needs, feelings, boundaries, traits, everything about them. And this is what they don't do. They don't look into that shadow and shine a light on the parts where they learned early on that they weren't okay. Now, for the avoidant, I think that's very clear. They have to shine a light on those parts, start opening up, show themselves more vulnerable. And for everyone out there who's in a relationship with an avoidant, and you're maybe now in the no contact phase after a breakup, I said this before, don't try to please them. Don't take this as a manual for how to please them and get them back. That's the wrong approach and the wrong signal, because even if you break no contact, they come back to you. You learn how to fulfill their avoidant needs, which are relational needs coming out of an early trauma wound. Even though you could do that, at the same time you'd lose yourself and you'd abandon and neglect your own feelings and needs. This might be a short-term win, but in the long run, you're definitely losing, and you're losing something far more important than this relationship. You're losing yourself, and you don't want that. Instead, what you want to do is build more independence for yourself. Not to become avoidant yourself, no, but to meet in the middle again, to find that place of interdependence, like a secure person. To do that, and going back to the missing puzzle piece, you can learn to supply part of that missing puzzle piece yourself. Again, some days we're needy, some days we're clingy, and in a relationship where both people are self-aware and reflective about their patterns, that's completely normal and works out fine. If you have an avoidant person who's completely unaware of their patterns and you ask them for emotional support, you want to be seen, you ask for love, you won't get it, they'll get triggered. Now, what you can do, instead of asking someone else to give you this feeling of validation and acceptance, is build a more solid, flexible sense of self within you. A solid sense of self means having a solid foundation of inner safety, meaning the certainty that when someone leaves you, it doesn't mean you'll leave yourself. It doesn't mean you'll lose yourself. You can step by step stay more present with yourself independently of the other person. And it's the same mechanism because it comes from the same core wound. What I learned in my own therapy, it's about learning to hold yourself. And holding yourself means staying present with that uncomfortable emotion. Say they're gone, you're on your own, and you want them to reach out again. You want the breadcrumbs because it gives you hope, because you see this holy grail, this missing puzzle piece out there. But no, you hold that emotion. You try to stay present with yourself. You know you don't need them to be whole. It's genuinely difficult, and it doesn't come from a frustrated or defiant place. It's not, I don't need them, I don't need anyone. No, it's more like, okay, they're not available, good. I don't need them to feel okay in here because I'm a fully grown adult. And you can practice that again and again and again, especially in those moments. Here's another mindset shift. Try not to see that breakup, that no contact, as a punishment or as something purely difficult. It is hard, but don't frame it as, why did life give me this situation? See it more as a challenge to grow. See it as, okay, I'm in this position right now. I was with another emotionally unavailable person. I see it as a challenge to grow, to build more inner safety for myself. Not to be independent and alone for the rest of my life, but to build enough stability to get back into dating with maybe someone more secure someday later. Not now, not tomorrow, but someday. Keep that goal in mind. And if you build more inner stability, more inner interdependence, at some point you'll probably, and I hope this for you, find someone who you also deserve, someone who treats you with respect and love, and who's at least on that healing journey themselves too.